Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Bob here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So the other day I did a video with a little bit of a sneak peek of some upcoming watches coming to the channel. In that same video I asked you guys if you had any questions you'd like to ask for an upcoming Q&A video, and today is the day I'm going to be answering those questions. If I'm looking down, I'm just looking here at my phone to go through the questions. The first question on the list, and I'm not going to get to all of these, otherwise the video might be a little bit long. I may do a follow-up video on this with another Q&A, and if you have any more questions, you maybe missed that opportunity with the first video, you're more than welcome to ask anything in the comments below on this video. So first question is from Ian Gilchrist. He says, hello, I do like the GS. In that video, I had actually just gotten my very first Grand Seiko. I've been wearing it a ton ever since. It is a beautiful watch, but he says, how accurate is the watch? Does accuracy improve with the price of a watch? So this particular watch is gaining 5 seconds per day. It's a few years old, so I'm not sure what that would have been right out of the box. As far as accuracy improving with the price of the watch, that's going to be the case with a lot of watches, but not a rule. I've had some very affordable watches gain only 1 or 2 seconds per day, where some more expensive watches were gaining maybe 6 to 8 seconds or more per day. So definitely not a rule when it comes to accuracy lining up with the price of a watch. Next up is a question from Todd Weishaus, and he says, hey Bob, another great video. Here's a question for you. If you could travel/tour any single country in the world, where would you choose to go? Ignore pricing and money just for the sake of it. That's actually a really tough question for me. My wife and I are both passionate when it comes to travel, and we have quite a lengthy list of places we'd like to visit at some point in time, kind of a bit of a bucket list, I guess you could say. And we've been talking travel a whole lot lately, especially with being cooped up in the house like so many of us are right now. But I think the best way to answer this is to talk about the next place we like to visit, or we would like to visit, and we were planning on going this fall. That's not going to be possible probably this year, but hopefully next year, and that would be Spain. I've always wanted to go to Barcelona. I always wanted to just explore the country as a whole, so that is coming up hopefully in the next year to 2 years, that trip. There's a few other places on the list. I'd love to go to Greece, and I know you said to keep it to one country, but we'd love to see Greece, go to Athens, go to the islands. I'd also like to explore Asia a little bit more, maybe go to Thailand, go to Japan. I'd love to do a little bit of watch shopping in Japan. So really good question. Thanks for that, Todd. This next one, I think I'm going to break it down into two. Well, it is 2 questions, so I'm going to answer them individually. RK516 asks, first of all, he says, congratulations on the GS. Love the strap and stitch work on it. Bob, how did you get into watches and how did you start your channel? So I was into watches a little bit in high school. I had a couple of digitals. I had an Iron Man, a couple of watches, not memorable at all. I specifically remember the Iron Man, but the other ones I don't as much. I do remember wanting the calculator watch, and I never ended up getting one back then. I've had one ever since then, but how I really got into watches was my wife started buying me just some fashion watches, Citizens, Bulivas, things like a Hugo Boss watch, that sort of thing, as birthday gifts. And I got into watches a little bit heavier because of some of those watches. There's 2 watches that kind of got me looking at YouTube, actually. One was a Hugo Boss chronograph, and the chronograph second hand was not lining up to 0 when I stopped it, and I started Googling around and searching to see if that was fixable. It was a quartz chronograph, and a lot of you guys know that you can actually realign those second hands. So I ended up finding some watch channels because of that search. I had a Bulova Precisionist that counted down to 1/1000th of a second, and I was Googling on how exactly to read the subdials on that particular watch. I did a video on that watch. That was one of my very first videos. I think it was like my 2nd or 3rd video on the channel. And so that turned me into looking at other watches and other watch channels. I found guys like TGV and some of those guys, Archie Luxury, and The watch that really got me into watches, though, was, and I think it was through a TGV video, was the Oris Aquis when I was doing my search on these other fashion sort of watches in my Bulova. I stumbled onto the Aquis and I just thought it was absolutely stunning. I found every review you could possibly find of it, and that sort of kicked off my passion. That got me looking at a whole bunch of different watches at the time, and that was one of my first serious watch buys, was the Aquis. So he also says, how did you start the channel? I've been a guy that's kind of carried around a camera. I was just looking through the basement and I pulled out this photo album. I've been carrying around a camera, even just a regular film cameras, video cameras sort of thing, since I was in high school. I moved from New Brunswick, the east coast of Canada, to Alberta on the west coast, to BC for a little bit, then Montreal. I was jumping around all over the place in my 20s, and I was documenting stuff back then. I wasn't posting it anywhere, but I was just making films, taking pictures. So when YouTube came out, I was posting under a personal account, just silly stuff. And once the watch passion took over, it was just an easy transition, and I wanted to do it, and I've been doing it ever since. It's been a few years now, and it's been one of the most fun hobbies that I've ever had, and it's been a really exciting thing for me. So I really appreciate both of those questions. Got one here from a fellow YouTuber, AB, from the Watch Collecting Strategy. If you happen to be not familiar with his channel, his video work is top notch. He's got some really good quality, fun videos to check out. He's definitely worth taking a look at. The question he asks is, how many watches do you have in your collection and what is your max number? I don't really have any rules when it comes to the number of watches in my collection. I don't really have rules at all in my collection, and maybe I should, but I do have a box that has 10 slots in it. That is kind of my core collection. I'll have anywhere from 5 to 15 other watches. Some watches that I'll pick up just for reviews, just to try out, that sort of thing. And maybe some of those watches end up in the 10 slot box, some don't. But again, not really any particular rule with that. So I could have anywhere from 10 to 25 or 30 watches at a time in the house. It does get to be a little overwhelming, so keeping it down to a smaller number definitely probably not a bad idea. Got another one from a watch channel, SoCal Watch Reviews out of California. He's another really good guy, Miguel. Definitely go check him out too. But he says, this is kind of where the questions go a little bit sideways here. This is a pretty hardball one. How does your wife feel about you spending so much money on watches? Do you keep all the watches that you buy? So I'll answer the second question. I do not keep all the watches that I buy. Like I said before, I do have a core of about 10 watches that I intend on keeping. Sometimes I'll pick up a watch and that will replace one of those core watches. So I do a lot of trading, but I think the best way to do this, my wife is out grocery shopping. So let's give her a call and see what she says. Hello.
Hello.
So, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How does your wife feel about you spending so much money on watches?
Well, if you would tell me that you were spending the money, then I could have a reaction.
Okay, next question. So I will actually address that question properly, but I have that second group of watches that aren't in the core collection. So in Toronto, there's a very large group of watch collectors that I know. I do a lot of trading and sort of flipping those watches. So I don't often spend very much on watches out of pocket. I sort of have a watch fund, I guess you could say, from watch sales that I've sort of built up over the years of collecting. So not a whole lot of money actually goes out on watches for the channel. Next is a good question from Josh Allen 732. I hopefully pronounced that right, but he says, if you could only ever buy from one brand, what brand would that be? That is a very easy question for me. That would be Seiko. I love that Seiko has such a variety of watches, even from vintage to modern, from affordable to much more expensive watches. I love the styling, and there's just so many options. So definitely Seiko would be my number one if I had to stick with just one brand. Okay, so we'll do a couple of more, and I got one from Watch Junkie. He says, nice vid, congrats on the new GS. What was your first Seiko watch, and is it the watch that got you into the Seiko madness? Last question, were you in a rock band? And I'm not sure if he thinks I look like somebody from a famous rock band or not, but I actually was in quite a number of rock bands in my teens and 20s. None of them went anywhere, so it's definitely not a band that you would have heard of. But what is your first Seiko watch? My first Seiko watch was the Seiko, I think it was the Baby Monster, the Seiko 5, the orange dial Baby Monster. The one that really got me into the Seiko madness was the Turtle. I had the gold gilt, the SRP. I think it's a 775. I might be way off on that number, but the gold gilt Turtle, when they first did the reissue, that got me really going on Seiko. And I actually may have a Turtle coming back into the collection here soon, so I'm excited for that. The last question that I'm going to answer, and there's a reason for this, is from Madrock Watches and Adventure. Jamie runs the channel Madrock Watches and Adventure out of Newfoundland on the very east coast of Canada, and him and I have been talking daily over the phone, chatting watches, chatting the lockdown. We've been just sort of supporting each other, keeping each other entertained through this kind of boring time sometimes that we're in right now. But he says, who is your favorite watch reviewer in Newfoundland? And that would definitely be Madrock Watches and Adventure. Make sure to go check him out. The reason I'm actually answering this question is him and I are teaming up. He's going to be announcing a giveaway on his channel very soon. If you watched a few videos ago, I did a chronograph, a Mercure mechanical chronograph, a really cool vintage styled chronograph. He's going to be doing a review of that watch very soon, and he'll be announcing the giveaway for that watch on his channel. So I'm going to leave a link to him in the description below, and look out for that giveaway announcement. That'll be coming probably a little later this week. So that is going to be it for the questions for today. I really appreciate everybody reaching out with the great questions. Again, I couldn't get to them all, and I may come back and do another Q&A very soon. This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for stopping by. Be safe out there, and we'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.